This is Ben from Testive, and we're answering a new SAT Heart of Algebra problem. This problem presents a scenario. The mesopelagic zone of the ocean is the zone that stretches between 200 meters and 1,000 meters below the ocean's surface. This zone is also known as the twilight zone because although some sunlight reaches this depth, it is not enough for photosynthesis to occur. Okay, so that's information we don't need to answer the question. Which of the following inequalities describes all possible depths d in meters below the ocean surface that are in the mesopelagic zone? Okay, so that's a lot of words to basically ask us to show to use an inequality to describe that d is between 200 meters and 1,000 meters below the ocean surface. Let me get a color here to write with, and we can see that all of our answers have an absolute value in them, so we need to express a range in absolute value format. The way that you do this, this is sort of a tricky problem to answer, but an easy problem to understand. So the way that you do this is you find the midpoint of the interval, right? So we have an interval of 200 is less than d is less than 1,000. If we're thinking in absolute value terms, as opposed to, we'll notice that it's not negative, it's all absolute value terms. So what that tells us is that we have this interval from 200 to 1,000. We need to find the midpoint of the interval. So we add 200 plus 1,000 over 2. That's how we find the midpoint, equals 1,200 over 2 equals 600 meters. And then you take the distance between the midpoint and the endpoints, and you use this midpoint for your interval. So you take the variable d minus 600. So we already know we're going to put it like that. Now that we have the midpoint, so we can actually rule out our answer choices and get the correct answer. And then that's going to be less than the distance between the midpoint and the endpoints, which is 400, because you can see that 600 is 400 away from 200, and it's 400 away from 1,000. It's the same distance because it's the midpoint. So this is actually our correct answer choice here. Let's think about why that works. Well, that works because if we put an endpoint in for d, say 200 minus 600, that's going to come up to be 400. Actually, it's negative 400. And the absolute value of this actually needs to be less than 400. So in this case, it's not, because we should have taken 199.99999. But this needs to be less than 400. Same thing with 1,000 minus 600 would be the upper end of the limit, and that limit has to be less than 400. Okay, so that's how this problem works. Would need to be less than 400. So I hope that that was helpful. This is not true here, but 999 would make it true. And so what we could do is we could say that we can see how if we go past it, it becomes untrue. So if you put in something that's within the range, let's say that you put in 600, well, 600 minus 600 is definitely less than 400 because it's 0. And so you can see that this value would go over here. This value we could think of as over here. And you're kind of like rotating around this midpoint value, which is why the midpoint is what goes in the left side of the inequality.